All right, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm John Caspian, and my camera just drooped down on the tripod. So I'm gonna fix that real quick, John.
And
What we're
I'm
talking
John
about
Galvin
today,
with
which is fun,
Living.
we're talking about today how to start your wargaming league in the summertime. Because I'm gonna be doing it up here in Cincinnati. You're gonna do it, with I'm
Down
sure the
south.
journeyman league in the summertime.
Yeah, yeah, no. So with the summer, and we talk about this, I guess almost every year around this, towards the end of spring, almost summertime. But there's always like a new wave of things coming out that's really exciting. So each game system, especially for the miniatures games, really likes to bring out its best around this time of year, simply to catch the interest of all those people who are getting a little bit more free time. Um, Especially being out of school or out of teaching school, teachers, students, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's a great time to not only get back into gaming or get into a system that maybe you haven't been playing for a while, but it's a great time to also kind of like broaden your play style within your chosen game. So with that, the Journeyman League should be taking off around late June, early July, with the release of the Infernals. The Infernals are kind of like the big bad boogeymen of the War Machine and Hordes universe, and they're getting an entire new range of models, miniatures, and things like that that haven't been seen before in War Machine and Hordes. So that's really cool, and it's a great time to get people playing, especially in a slow grow league sense. So that's what I'm super hyped for, and then also maybe Forbidden Power as well.
I got Wild West Exodus going on. I think I fixed it. Did I fix it? Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good now. Wild West Exodus, which is awesome, very cool. Got the Red Oak starter set. We'll be doing some streams on that one. Did a stream a couple of weeks ago with CJ, who was able to do some demos. Who's also coming to do some more demos soon. Also Dust, and then the Kill Team Elites, which I definitely want to talk a lot about because they're including
Oh
Custodes,
yeah,
which is amazing.
that's
So Kill Team Elites, definitely want to talk about that one. And we're gonna have a Kill Team League, I believe, in the summertime. So
yeah.
what Ricky, who is our awesome Giga champion for our skirmish size games for 40k and whatnot, they're currently doing Necromunda, which I think has been the largest Necromunda league at Gigabytes.
Yeah, I think
But I
so.
don't have the exact player count. Do you know, John?
No, because the player count seems to keep growing
Mm-hmm.
regardless. So, which is great. Um, and I am like super pumped about it, right? So, it is one of those things where Kill Team represents a way for me to play 40k in which I'm more comfortable since I come from like a lot of skirmish games and I like smaller
Mm-hmm.
point games. Um, and I wanted to get into that. And Necromunda takes it like the step up where it adds that like really like narrative aspect to it, which I really like. I am like, I don't know. I love to see Necromunda grow, and I love to see that like the Apocrypha for Necromunda is coming out as well, I believe.
Okay,
So
and that's the rule book.
it is. So I think it's a campaign book for once. So
Ooh.
yeah, right. It's really interesting that they are doing a campaign because like every other book that they've done so far has been like more or less just a faction coming out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So uh the fact that we are getting something where it's just narrative elements, just ways to play the game itself. So I'm kind of hyped about that, and there should be a league around there as well. Now,
Awesome.
we might have the Kill Team Elites League in between the next Necromunda League, but once
Mm-hmm.
again, I expect it to grow significantly. So in between leagues in itself, yeah,
It'll be awesome. It'll be so good. We also gonna have summertime 40k leagues,
yeah.
correct?
So the campaign keeps going. I want to say we are just finishing out one of the leagues in itself. So, or like one of the seasons of the campaign. So the summer season should be starting relatively soon.
Sweet. And then Age of Sigmar.
Age of Sigmar. So we're finishing the Corn like Bloodbound.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? The Corn. I'm completely blanking on Kai's league, but it's like the Corn Bloodtide League should be wrapping up pretty soon, which is really fantastic. Um, um, so I'm kind of excited to see what goes on next after there. I want to say it's going to be with Forbidden Power.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so Forbidden Power is the next Age of Sigmar expansion, and it should be the next step in story exploration, right? So, those who don't know the like what's been driving the story in Age of Sigmar the last couple of, I guess almost years now, has been the Necroquake, where it's just as crazy as it sounds, but it is this massive necromantic like surge of energy that was shot across every single world in the Age of Sigmar setting. And what ended up happening was Nagash did this to try to take control, but it got messed up and it released the endless spells into the world. And then also every other faction in the game has been kind of dealing with the aftermath. Because even though Nagash really wanted to raise all the dead under his control, it just kind of raised dead under no one's control, and it's been like almost like a zombie apocalypse setting for Age of Sigmar with how some of the factions had to deal with it. Like they talked about the Fireslayer books, how dwarves were like rising from the grave, and the Fireslayers had to basically kill their friends over again,
Oh man.
which is kind of brutal. But it is just part of the world. They wanted to kind of, I guess, bring it back to a little bit more a grim setting, and make sure that people feel like, hey, it's not happy-go-lucky, like squashing chaos left and right. It is going to be more, we are doing our best to survive. And so what?
Yeah, because like Warhammer Fantasy is super grim fantasy, right? But
Yes.
then this is going full on like high fantasy,
Yeah.
high grim fantasy. I
Yeah.
guess you
So
could say.
it was like really high fantasy for a while, and it's great. Um, but it is, I guess it didn't have that, like, I don't want to say like gravitas, but like it didn't have that like weight to it, right? Like, because at the end of the day, if you didn't do it, then who would, right?
Hmm.
So um it is one of those things where now they have like a little bit more of a, well, you have to take up arms to defend your realm, or if you don't, bad things are going to happen. There's going to be no one to save you.
That's great. And we also have Clone Wars, which is currently at the printers at Fantasy Flight. So we're assuming around probably Gen Con for a release. Because
um
once it's on the boat, it can be always held up at customs, which tends to be a thing nowadays.
right.
We actually just wasn't Loon Curse just held up.
Yes,
They announced that fun video with the plants and everything. The whole
No.
purpose of it was to say, "Oh yeah, by the way, it's been held up."
So um what ended up happening, um it wasn't Loon Curse that was held up as much as it was this new Sylvaneth release that was coming out.
Oh, okay. So the two-player thing is fine. It's
Yeah.
the all the other stuff with it.
Now, so
Okay.
one of the things to be said is that Loon Curse was held up in the, or sorry, we got a limited release of Loon Curse for the first week or so as they're catching up with production. But
Hmm.
luckily, we had a little bit more than we thought we were going to. So we were able to at least meet our pre orders. And I think we have, it looks like five here at the store ready to pick up when people show up and want to get their things.
Okay, good. So we've already received it. That's nice.
Yeah.
Phew.
And I'll show it off a little bit later. But it was the
Oh
Sylvaneth
yeah.
that was kind of delayed. Um,
Okay.
so I'm assuming Games Workshop is having to kind of remanage the schedules a little bit because they want to
Hmm.
still hit that like same weekly time period.
Right.
But it is, it's hard to tell, right? Like it's hard. Games Workshop does keep things relatively close to the chest, which is
Hmm.
fine. But uh, it does give me a little bit of worry if they're having production issues, especially due to like the China stuff that's going on.
Hmm.
Whether or not we'll see like an actual delay, or maybe they'll miss a weekly release, like because Games Workshop hasn't done that in the last like 3 years, I think.
Right. Be good even with all the other smaller companies that have things held up, you know.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
oftentimes for these smaller gaming companies, it's one crate, like it's one thing. And of
Yeah.
course, these big ships are carrying hundreds and hundreds of them.
Yeah, I remember there was a story about a Fantasy Flight game where like literally they lost like a shipping container on the journey
Yeah.
over, which like really kind of held up the products and such. So
Now you got boxes in the ocean
yeah,
just floating
like
around.
I still like to think that like 200 years from now, like people will be treasure diving and they'll be like, oh sweet, I finally found that like B-wing shipment that was lost all those years ago.
That'd be great. Uh, you could totally do like a little funny video on that one.
Yeah. Uh,
Gives me inspiration.
but
I actually had inspiration for a funny elites video where guardsmen are at training, and then one of the custodies shows up. And they're like, "We're getting ready for the kill team, gentlemen." One of the custodies is like, "I'm here for training."
oh god, yeah.
Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, that is going to be interesting with the elites, just simply because like the power level and all that.
I'm gonna have 4 models versus like 20.
Yeah, and that to me, like, it seems interesting, and as long as it like comes across as like those 4 models feel the same weight as 20.
Hmm.
But usually with like Games Workshop games, like volley of fire can usually win out,
Right.
as
Just
opposed
odds.
to uh, like having super heavy guys. But I mean, like if you have enough hit points, then like everything's okay. So
Well, they have what's really cool is superior transhuman physiology, which means they don't take any penalties to their hit rolls or anything. Whereas Space Marines ignore the first penalty for the first wound, the Custodies ignore all of them.
that's kind of cool.
Right? That's
Yeah.
the kind of stuff I thought was going to be in the Codex when it first came out. I was like,
Yeah,
oh, they're super superior even to Space Marines and Primaris.
and that's something to I guess more or less to think about as well, like because they can oh like use this as a testing ground for like rules that can come out later, right? Like
Hmm.
when custodies come out. So, it's just one of those things. And to me, I always like to think about like smaller games like Kill Team, Necromunda, even the box set games like Speed Freaks or like Underworlds, things like that. They're able to test mechanics or ideas or rules that they wouldn't necessarily want to bring to their like main title, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah, and of course you have all the people who are trolling with, Kill Team Titans is next, Kill Team Vehicles,
yeah, Kill Team vehicles definitely waiting for,
right? Now you just need a 4x4 board, and you're good to go.
right? And so it's just one of those things. Um, people will troll, but the nice thing is the fact that they are. It's been I think 2 years since 8th edition Kill Team came out, or maybe like a year and a half. But
Year and a half?
they've stayed consistent with releases and
Yeah.
constantly adding to the game. Whether it's those like Battle Force boxes, which are amazing. I'm picking up the Fractal Blades.
Nice. Which one's that?
That's the Thousand Suns one. Like I have
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Terminators out the wazoo. I don't need more, but I'm going to get it. And I'm going to be building it up and maybe even customizing those guys in there to be my like kill team squad. And I might
Oh, heck
even
yeah.
slap on like weapon options I didn't take before, right? Like so, giving a guy the warp flamer as opposed to the Soul Reaper cannon kind of thing. So it's all pretty exciting.
That's
And
awesome.
it also comes
So
with
then,
branded rules.
to our topic before we, so we're going to talk about our topic now, and then after that we'll talk about some other new releases and stuff that's coming out.
Absolutely.
But talking about getting started with your Wargaming League, so number one thing is, what game are you going to be playing?
Yeah.
In this case, I'm going to be trying to do one for Dust over the summer here in Cincinnati. So then I have a target that I want to hit in terms of the number of weeks. Now,
Right.
as Gigabytes, we have a lot of experience in how many weeks a game can last. and very few go for a long time except for maybe 40K.
Yeah.
For the most part, they need to be a little shorter. But you want to give some insight on that, John?
Yeah, so a lot of times people will run leagues for like 8 weeks, and those peter out really quickly. Um, Now, Kai, like Kai, I think has found a way to keep people engaged in it, and that is either something to do with Age of Sigmar in itself that lends itself to league play, or the fact that like Kai is able to keep things exciting and going. But generally, you want leagues to be a little bit shorter than you think they should be. So, like, I would even do like a 4 week league to keep the excitement there, and then like learn from what Rob does and break it into seasons, right? So, like, you do a 4 week block. Hey, listen, this is what the season is. These are the rules. Give yourself a week break and then start season two. And that lets people like change or drop out or move things around. Because if you really think about it, let's say I have to miss a week in season one. Well, that really bites because I missed a week. There's no way that I can possibly catch up, even if it was like an 8 week league. Like almost every league has no way of really catching up with consistent play. But if you
Right.
stop the scoring at the end of the first season and when you start to season two, like, and you can even say, like, let's say for Kill Team, you start off at 50 points, but then season two starts at 75 points. And both of them are still scaling up to like 100 or maybe even beyond that. But when it resets for season two, then I can come in and I'm able to make all those weeks. So I feel like I have more of a shot, that sort of thing. And it's less discouragement, the smaller bracketing that you have for like play. So I enjoy that a lot, especially as someone who has a really busy schedule. I know I work at a game store, but finding time for games is very difficult for me. um,
Right.
so uh, finding smaller leagues that have like a really strong like either narrative or gameplay element to it is really enticing. And that's what, like, my big thing with leagues is I like leagues centered around big releases. So with Forbidden Power coming out, it's a really exciting time because this is something that everyone can take part in. It has been said multiple times that in the Forbidden Power expansion that they're coming out with, everyone can take part in it. And with the Infernals coming out, there's the Oblivion book. The Oblivion book for War Machine and Hordes is a campaign book for all factions. So once again, that's a new, exciting release that everyone can take part in, which is really awesome.
Nice. Okay.
And this is kind of off of like Kai's. Kai has been doing these Age of Sigmar leagues that are based around the newest army or faction release for Age of Sigmar. So like he did one with the Bad Moon Rising, and then when Khorne came out, it was the Khorne League. And so when Forbidden Power comes out, we can do Forbidden Power. And once again, this is a new release, and it gets people excited. It changes up the meta, and people who like those armies have like a narrative reason to be like, oh yeah, like this league's for me. And then the rest of us, Kai usually tries to put in narrative reasons why your army is engaged in this league itself, right? So like, even though I don't have an interest in playing Khorne, Kai makes sure that like, well, this is how your army deals with it. This is how your army sees the resurgence of Khorne and like how you want to handle it, kind of. So it's nice. It's including the narrative element with the hype of a new release. So it's really cool.
So then you have that element, and then the next thing you have to do is you have to plan for how you're going to track the players, track points, and do all of your tracking as the lead at the head of the league, right? So you're saying, I'm going to be the organizer. I want to put this whole thing together, and then you say, well, how the heck am I going to do that? There's a couple of simple tools, and thank you to Google, our overlords, for having those tools freely available. So the first thing you have to do is have Google Forms, and Google Forms is just going to track the emails, phone numbers, and names, and armies that people are going to have, right? So then you can say, I'm doing a Kill Team League, and I want to have up to 16 players. So then you can have signups, and then I think you can cap it, or once it gets to around 16, then you can shut it off. That way no new players can sign up for it. And then you can track all that stuff, and then export it to a Google Sheets, which is basically Excel, but in Google. And then you can have all that stuff there, for easy reference.
Yeah, and John, this might be something to do like later on, like, but if you could
Mhm.
make a video on how to manage a league within Google, I think a
Yeah.
lot of people could benefit from it. Uh,
Hmm.
and also, like, to me, the share the burden of the league with the players as well. Um, I like when people say, "Hey, participating in the league, you want to report a game? You can log on to this Google link or whatever to report your game," and not making it the tournament organizer's job to like hunt you down and get your results, because
Right.
that slows things down and it almost always gets misreported in some way or another. But if you make the players responsible for their own games, then hey,
Hmm.
it's on them to make sure that they want to win, right, or do well in said league. So
Absolutely. So, in addition to having your form for players to sign up, I always create a submission form. So then you can edit the form if you need to, but let's say you're starting off in weeks 1 through 4. Let's say you have an 8-week league, and the first half is one thing and the second half is another thing for whatever reason. So let's say you have 100-point games for kill team. So submit, your kill team or how many points that you scored in that mission, and then, submit the mission. So when you're filling in that form, you make sure that you have all of the variables that you need to already filled out so that players can just insert it. So then today's date, which they can fill in, if they fill it in on their phone, it usually autofills, from what I recall from running the Kill Team League here in Cincinnati when I did it. It'll autofill it, and then they have to put in their opponent's name, and that's very important.
yeah,
Because if both players put in different results, might be a couple of issues there, right? But
right.
most of the time, you're not going to have a problem. So then you have your form, they submit everything, and then
Yeah.
everything's hunky
And
dory that
and I
way.
mean, like on that note, if both players submit something and they're both different, when you think about it, it shows usually like, oh hey, someone's not necessarily understanding the scoring of the league correctly, or
Right.
maybe there was a dispute that ended up not being solved. So that's where you, as the TO, get to step in and do what you should be doing, and finding out where the issue is and resolving it. So yeah,
The next step is making sure that you have everything either on some sort of web page or at least a Facebook group. So then here in Atlanta, everyone does Facebook groups for the leagues if it's going to be a larger league. So with Kai's leagues, he'll make a separate group for those leagues. Sometimes you can have league events, or you can post about the league inside the North Georgia groups if you're here in Atlanta area. So we have the North Georgia Kill Team, and if you post in that group, then it's going to be all about the Kill Team League and the Necromunda League. So that's the next step, is to make sure that people have somewhere to go if they need information. You always have your announcements about the latest stuff at the top of the group, and then you put all of the info that they need to have there. So they shouldn't be asking you, every week, hey, what's up next week? You should already have that information ready and available for them.
yep.
So that when you're saying, hey, we're going into week 2, just a reminder, check out blah, 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 all the info, the points needed, the goal of the missions, all the other restrictions and stuff like that. Because the organization there means that you spend less time, if you have a 32-player league, you spend less time having to deal with people asking random questions. They might anyway, but
Yeah, I
it
mean,
should be easy enough to point them to a document that you've already made.
I was going to say, I think it's natural for people to ask questions uh, before even like necessarily going all the way through a rules document. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep, and that's fine. Questions are great, especially newer players. So if it's a new player, that's no problem, right? There's someone who hasn't really played before, then they really might be partly nervous, like they don't know exactly what's going on, and
yeah,
that's really their way of saying, "Hey, I don't really know what this is all about. Can you explain it to me?" And oftentimes they won't say that. You'll just have to assume.
right,
So I had a player who didn't understand, but was kind of iffy on some of the missions and stuff like that, or how you roll for missions and stuff like that. So we actually had another player who made a flowchart of how you determine the missions, so that everyone in the league could be on the same page for that. And so if one player's having an issue with something, it's a good idea to go to the rest of the players and say, hey, are we all on the same page on this? Because oftentimes if one player starts getting problems with something, then they might drop out, they might not show up the next week, then your league is down a player, and it kind of goes downhill from there.
yeah,
That momentum is very important.
yeah. keeping momentum in leagues is always key. And I know we've talked about it before, but
Mhm.
it really, you don't want anything to slow you down, whether it's organization, players, or releases. So planning for all of that, and like that is like a big part of the organizer's job, is to account for that and adapt to it, right? So, but yeah, it is to keep a league going. Don't keep any don't let things slow down. Just always, always, always be moving. So, uh,
Yep. And
get
then
the play.
special events are super important as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say what has come special events that you've done for War Machine?
Well, actually, we have a tournament coming up this weekend called "Who's the Boss," which is an alternate rule set to War Machine Hordes. Um,
Hmm.
and so that's always important, right? With special events and all that, like you either want to have like a tournament at the tail end of a league, or maybe like a special scenario that you come up with, or
Hmm.
something like that. "Who's the Boss" is a format in which you get randomly assigned a caster from any of the other factions in the game. So. Um, it's really interesting, and it changes things up, and it provides a different gameplay experience. And
Interesting.
with that, it's something that you can't find in a normal setting, which interests people. And that's the same thing with leagues. I know I tried starting an Age of Sigmar league uh, a while ago. This was before like it really got the momentum going as a community. But I did a special scenario where it's basically either assaulting or defending a keep, right? So
Okay.
special rules for it, all that sort of thing, and we had a huge turnout for it. And this is also the like me learning my lesson, because after that I started going back to the book for like the scenario rules and things like that, and it just wasn't as engaging as doing something special and unique. So
Hmm.
lesson learned.
Yeah, I think also that when the game developers are making these missions, it's partly balance. It's got to be understandable very quickly and easily.
Yep.
If it's too esoteric, then it becomes something that fewer people are going to enjoy. But I totally understand that from a design perspective.
Yeah.
But it is an actually advantage for us. So if you're running a league, for my kill team, I actually did a anti-custodes battle.
Ooh.
So I created an AI, which is actually fairly similar to how the Fallout people did it, except I didn't roll for it. I had basic conditions. So if you fulfill a certain condition, then the Custodes would do something like charge or shoot or, advance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Gave him a couple of special rules so that the AI couldn't be taken advantage of too much. So normally it's really easy to engage a single model in melee, and then they have to fall back and they can't charge. But I said that, oh yeah, well, because it's an AI and it'd be really easy to have a guard kill team just rush him one by one and then shoot him down really quick, he actually can charge in any given round. So that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And this is before Elites was even announced or anything like that. And all of the players were loving it because it was literally two players at 250 points at the time, because each player had 125 points. So two players would then try to fight this Custodes, and the Custodes would almost win in every single game that was played. Like, it was that powerful to where it would just shoot models off the board very quickly and start charging things down. And they had a freaking blast. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
And that's something that's doing something special, right? Like it really, like, hearing it was just like, oh hey, that would be kind of like, how would my army react to that or deal with it,
Hmm.
like in both rules and story perspective. um and that's always kind of what you want. That's how you want to like get people in there, is making it relatable to how they play the game or the army that they play themselves. um, and with doing all those like special rules like that, also take advantage of what you have, right? So like if you have those minis spare, and you can bring them in, right? Like you can start building around them. Same with like terrain and all that, because these are things that rule books can't account for, and why
Right.
the basic scenarios end up being a little bit vanilla, because they can't expect you to have like a vast majority of terrain. Like you might still be playing with like books and sheets of paper saying this is a forest. um, and so that's the reason why, like, you as a league organizer, like, look at what the books do and then expand upon it. Look at your resources, look at what you have available, especially if you're coming into like gigabytes. Like, I love it when DMs, and this is specifically for role-playing games, but like we have several of the game masters come in and they'll look through a terrain section and they'll grab a couple pieces, pull it out, kind of set it up on the table, and they'll start writing and they'll prepare for it. And once again, it's using the resources that they have available to them, but using it to make something unique and engaging for their league or campaign or however you want to call it. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So speaking on engaging, keeping players engaged the whole way through, talked a little bit about that, but then having a climax and a culmination of everything,
Yeah.
so that players always have something to fight towards. It's super important. So what's some things that you've done?
Um. So on that, finishing out leagues in a big way. So like a lot of times, the standard has been like tournaments.
Mhm.
And tournaments are kind of fun because like let's say the league starts at 1,000 and it ends at 2,000, and then at the end of the league we're like, hey, we're doing a 2,000 point tournament. Anyone's invited, but like if you're a league player, then you know you don't have to worry about entry fees, or if you're a league player, you get to do X, Y, or Z kind of thing. Um, so once again, it's adding new blood to the league itself for the final kind of thing, and then it gives you a winner of that tournament, which kind of gives you that resolution. Um, I like that. I think that's kind of like the almost the standard now. Like so that is
Mhm.
like what you are expected to do. You're expected to run kind of a competitive event at the end of the league once people kind of get more of a grasp of their army or find out how they want their army to move forward in this like narrative league. Um, I have found, however, more narrative events, like a big narrative event day, is usually a lot more compelling for someone to go to, especially for something like a campaign or league, which is centered around, you know, hey, it's not about like crushing your opponents, it's about stopping the evil menace from outside this dimension from coming in, right? So
Yeah.
usually I like doing multiplayer format events for that day. And
Okay.
so like you could put 4 players on a table or like 6 players on a table, and once again this would require someone to play the bad guys. Like let's say John, let's say we're in the Infernals League and I'm the
Mhm.
one running it. In the last day, yeah, you guys did a good job about stopping the Infernals, but you know they had Plan B all along, and they ended up making a tear, and now they're pouring through. So it's up to
Mm.
you and you know 3 other people from this league to either work together to stop the Infernals, or maybe you can try to gung ho it yourself and do as much damage as you possibly can to make sure that your kingdom is safe, right? Um,
Right.
and so it gives a little bit of politics at the table, like how you want to interact with those people that you might have considered enemies for the last 4 weeks. Now the stakes are raised even higher, and regardless if you win or lose, it still gives you that sense of completion, right? Like at the end of the day, this is the last portal that could possibly be open. So either you seal it or you doom your world by not working together or maybe failing at the last second, kind of thing. So I like that sort of
Nice.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is great. So yeah, those are the main keys I think to running a successful summer league. People's schedules are busy. There's folks who go on vacation a lot. For folks who have children, you're oftentimes going to things like Disney World or,
Yeah.
you know, even if it's a staycation, oftentimes people just want to stay at home, whatever. So then when you're considering the people who are playing, just make sure to ask them, hey, just making sure that we're planning on meeting on this day of the week. Let's say
Yeah.
it's a Monday evening. Is that good with you for the next 4 weeks? Because maybe for half your players, that's not actually a good day. You might consider having to change that up.
Yeah. And so another thing to really consider too is making your league kid friendly.
Yeah.
Talking to your player base, if a lot of them have young kids, like I know Age of Sigmar is great for younger gamers, right? Um, Monster Apocalypse is fantastic for younger gamers. Like whenever we have a tournament, we usually have someone around or under 10 years old. And it's just one of those things that keeps kind of growing the game in itself, is getting a newer generation into it. So um, checking with your player base, seeing what works, what doesn't work, going from there and doing all that sort of fun stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So that covers everything in general. So that actually is a good idea. I'll probably see if I can film that today on, showing off how to do it in Google Sheets and everything, Google Forms. Yeah, that'd be good. So any other new releases that we have to talk about?
So let me grab some of them.
Yeah.
Take all 2 seconds.
So I'm excited about Custodes. I am so pumped. Kill Team Custodes. I've been waiting for that for a little while. I thought they'd be in it originally, but I guess it makes sense not to.
Yeah, I mean, like, because you want them to represent the power that they naturally have. And so I think if they came in the normal edition, then, like they would have had to take a reduction in what you would think a Custodes would be. So, it's good that they waited this long.
And I started filming Ragnarok How to Play last night.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, that's great.
So then I want to be able to show that off to people before they purchase the book, so that you can see how it plays. Because we have 30 copies on pre-order, but I feel like it's going to go fast.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are a ton of amazing Viking models. I've got some. Actually, here we go. So some of these things are bones that we have in the store. A couple of other ones are the Nolzers, which are they still called Nolzers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so then we have some of those, like, barbarians are really good for Vikings, because they're just wearing, like, the cloth or whatever.
And don't forget about the Warcry miniatures, too, that are coming out.
Yeah, those would be a good addition for that.
Yeah.
So any of those, everything's on a 30mm base, so make sure you grab some from us, and if we don't have any because they're popular, order some from us, and we can get some for you. And then it's played on a 3x3 board, so it's going to be awesome. Coming out end of the month.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm really excited for it, and I'm kind of I'm glad Tim's local, so I get to pull his ear about it. But I'm excited to see all the gameplay and all that sort of good stuff. So but let's go through the releases really quick. We got people pulling on the door already, so I'll have to go get in a second. So we have an expansion to Bunny Kingdom, In the Sky. So this is one of the more popular games from EL. And I absolutely love the design of it and the art and the illustrations. So,
nice.
If you guys already have that game, great. If you don't, check out the core game and definitely get the expansion with it. Another thing that we've gotten in, which I particularly like, because I think it's really cute, is Growl.
Aww.
So Growl is basically a new take on the classic party game Werewolf. And so it more or less adds new features, new playability, more fun things to do. So it is definitely a step up. And for those people that like Werewolf, it is definitely something to consider either as a gift or pick up for yourself for the next party. It does come with this board game cover in itself, which is this adorable little blue monster sleeve, which is also
with the teeth on the front. That's so cute.
Yeah, no, it's adorable, and it's super soft. Actually, really nice, and you can use it as a dice bag if you really feel like it.
Sweet.
And finally, what we have in stock for a limited time is going to be Loon Curse. So get your Loon Curse while you can. We only have 5 more copies in. And it's an incredible deal, and much like the Carrion Empire box, which sold out and you wouldn't be able to find anywhere after like a week or two of release, expect Loon Curse to be the exact same. So please, if you're interested, let us know. Come in, get your boxes. We have 5 left, so we can only take full payment. We can't hold things without any payment on them. So please check it out, and thank you guys very much for coming and joining our stream. I do have to go.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. That was awesome.
All right. You guys have a good day.
Everyone have a great day, and we'll see y'all on the next video. Goodbye.